Welcome to our series of webinars on how to use the Market Maker trading system. The Market Maker system has been developed over the last 15 years and we've invested over £80 million on this unique trading technology. Market Maker is one of the most advanced trading platforms available in the industry today, and one of the big advantages of Market Maker is it's fully customizable. Okay, so let's show you a couple of the functionalities. What we have up on the screen at the moment is a general markets overview screen. Now within Market Maker you can create as many different layouts as you like. If you have a look at the very top hand corner of the screen, you'll notice if I click on the drop down menu, you've got one there on the general markets, you've got one on the foreign exchange markets, commodities, the US and also the UK. And there's also one there called blank, and is basically a blank canvas to start putting up what you want to see. Alright, so within this general markets overview screen, what we have up in the top left hand corner of this trading platform is what we call single price windows. You'll notice up the top we've got the UK 100 index showing us the current bid and offer price on the UK. So you've got a bid price, the one that you can sell it at 4,248, and on the offer price 4,250. Below this we have a number of other single price windows such as the US 30, the S&P 500, the German 30, and then below that we've got a couple of foreign exchange pairs such as cable, which is pound versus US dollar, the euro versus US dollar, and next to that we've also got the spot price on gold. Now you can bring up any single price window for the 3,500 plus different instruments that you can trade on this platform. Below that we've also got a chart on the UK 100 index. The charting functionality within Market Maker, you can bring up any chart and it is updated in real time. So if we're looking at this chart below, this is of the UK 100 index, 1 year daily chart, and it's a candlestick chart. Now in one of the other modules we'll teach you just how to utilize all the different functions within the charting package, such as adding indicators, changing the time periods, and even changing the type of chart such as candle, bar chart, mountain chart, etc. Below this we have our news information. Now the news information provided in Market Maker is updated by the Dow Jones Newswire service, and it brings up all the current news stories that are being applied to the financial markets. Now this information we have down the bottom is just the general markets news, but it's also very possible just to bring up news related to a particular instrument, and again we'll show you that in one of the other modules later on. In the bottom right hand corner of the screen we have what we call a group price window. Now this is a group price window of all the UK sectors that are offered on the system, such as the banking sector, the telecommunications, the food sector. What it's showing us at the moment is the bid and offer prices plus the low and high price for that particular day. Now again you can completely customize these for. By right clicking it will bring up a number of different options for you, such as the mid price, the percentage change, high, low, etc. Okay, if we move on, we have a look up above that. What we have is our blotters. Now blotters are just a list of executed trades, pending orders or contingent orders that we might have in the system. At the moment you've got there the executed trades. You've also got any pending orders that we might have in the system. And in one of the next modules we'll talk about how you can go about setting up your stops and limits and contingent orders from there. Then above that we have our client position keeping screen. The client position keeping screen shows us the total equity that we currently have in our account, the amount of margin that we're currently utilizing to tie up any positions, and also the amount of free equity that we have left to trade with. Then below that we have our cash positions. So you've got a cash position there of pounds, you've also got a cash position there in US dollars. Alright, so there's an idea for a trading screen. But as I mentioned before, one of the great things about Market Maker is that it's fully customizable. So if we go up the top here and we click on blank, it will then load up with a blank Market Maker layout. So how do we go about adding to this layout the particular instruments that we're interested in? Well, what we need to do is go up to our client instrument panel up the top, or our instruments tree. If I click on this, it will then bring up all the 3,500 plus different instruments that are offered through the Market Maker system. So if I just right click and I reset the tree, it's then broken down for you into two functions. It's broken down into your CFDs and it's also broken down into foreign exchange. So let's firstly have a look at our CFDs. So I click on the arrow, It then breaks it down into the region. So for etc., we've got CFD contracts in Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, the UK, and the US. So let's try and recreate the previous screen that we had on the system. So if we go down to CFD UK, if we click on this, it will then bring us up the options or the CFD contracts that are available in the UK market, such as the indices, the sectors, the AIM shares, and also the shares within each individual sector. So if we go to CFD UK indices, we then have the instrument that we want to look at. So if we right click, and everything within Market Maker is right click, to bring up the functionality, simply right click on your mouse and it will come up with this grey box. So for example, we can bring up an order ticket, we can bring up a single price window, price depth window showing us level 2 information, we can display a chart, related news just to that instrument, related analysis, create price alerts, we can even set dealing defaults. But we'll talk about most of these other functions within other sections of the webinar modules. So let's bring up a single price window on the UK 100. What you'll notice is that the single price window box will then populate into our workspace on the right hand side. Now from there we can maneuver it wherever we like. If we grab hold of the heading, we can maneuver that price anywhere on the screen that we see fit. We can also make it as big or as small as we like. So let's put that up the top. One of the things we all know about the markets is that quite often the US market is certainly a leader in the direction in which the markets are heading. So let's have a look at the CFD US market and again bring up the indices. Now we have the 4 major indices on the US market, such as the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, the Dow, and the Rush as well. So let's bring up the Dow. So we right click, single price window, and again it populates in our workspace on the right hand side. Now I'd like to drag that down below the UK 100 index. Now I also find that the S&P 500 is an interesting market to look at because it brings up the top 500 companies of the US. So bring up the single price window and it brings up the index of the S&P 500. I'll drag that top one there just to match the size, and now we have a number of different single price windows of the indices that we like to have a look at. Okay, well the instrument tree is fantastic. You can go through all the different regions, all the different types of instruments, but let's say you're already familiar with the particular instrument you want to trade. What we can simply do is go up to the search function and type in the stock code or the name of the company that you want to trade. So for example, if we wanted to look at Vodafone, we could either type in the stock code VOD. If we didn't know the stock code, again you just need to write in the total name and it will also populate. So if I right click on Vodafone, single price window, and again it populates into our workspace. It doesn't just have to be a stock in the UK. For example, if you're interested in BMW or Google in the US, again simply type in the instrument and again it will populate into our workspace. Right click, single price window, and now we have a number of single price windows in our workspace on the right hand side. To go back to our instruments tree, simply delete the information and we're back to our original screen. Okay, I'll just reset that tree again and it comes back to CFDs and foreign exchange. Obviously you can do just the same functionality on the foreign exchange instruments on offer, or even the metals such as gold and silver that are available through the system. Alright, once we've actually finished with our instruments tree, you simply click on this instrument up the top and it will hide the instruments tree from view, so we just simply go back to our workspace. Okay, let's bring up a chart of the UK 100 index. All we need to do is again simply right click on the instrument and the same functionality will appear as appeared in our instruments panel on the left hand side. One of those there is to display the chart. So let's click on display the chart and it will populate down the bottom of the screen. What we have here is a 3-month 1-hour chart, and down the left hand side of this chart it gives us a number of different options such as the style of chart, which we can change to line, bar, mountain, etc. We can also add studies such as Bollinger Bands, moving averages, and also a number of oscillators such as MACD, RSI, and then below that we have our settings. Now our settings are what we get used to with the charts. So do we want vertical or horizontal grid lines? Would we like to extend the chart to see into the future? Do we want a dynamic line showing us the current price that it's trading at? And again, down the bottom, you can change the type of cursor, whether or not you want it as a linear or a log or a percentage axis. So you can fully customize these charts. To hide this, you simply click on this grey box and it populates the whole chart. But please refer to the other modules of the webinars to talk about the charting package in more detail. Alright, let's bring up the Dow Jones Newswire service. Well, again, we could simply right click on any of the instruments up the top here, so for example the US 30, and bring up the related news. And you'll notice down the bottom that we've got news for the US 30 and the top 60 stories that currently relate to that particular instrument. But let's say we just wanted to bring up general market news. We can do that by going up to the top and clicking this newspaper icon at the top. Click on this, and now what it's showing us is all news on the financial markets in the recent period. And it will show you the time and the date that that news was posted. And if you double click on any of these news stories, it will come up with the full details showing us exactly what that news is all about. Again, to close, simply click on the X and we're back to our workspace. Alright, the next thing we want to bring up is a group price window. So again, we will go back into our instruments tree, go into CFDs, and this time let's bring up the CFD UK sectors. Now we can simply click on the little arrow and it will bring up all the different sectors in there. We could bring up a single price window of each of these, or alternatively, if we right click on the heading, it enables us to bring up a group price window. So if I click on group price window, you'll see that it populates again into our workspace on the right hand side. So I'll close the instruments tree down, and what I'll do is I'll come down the bottom and put it into our workspace down here. At the moment, you'll notice that the UK sectors is showing us the bid and offer time for that particular instrument, and the time just means the last time that it was updated. Again, I'm not quite interested in the time because the markets are quite volatile, they'll move quite consistently. So all I need to do is right click on the heading and hide the time. But I am interested in knowing what the high and the low is for the day. So again, I simply right click, show, and bring up the high and also the low of these instruments for the day. And I can drag that low to the front. So now I have it as the low, the bid, the offer, and the high price. So I can quickly see what the current price is, as well as the two extremes for the trading day. Okay, we'll talk about group price windows and how you can create your own group price window in another module of this particular webinar. Okay, so we've looked at the single price windows, the charts, the group price windows, and news functionality, but there are two screens that I have up on my system at all times. The first of those is my client position keeping screen. So if I go up to this little white icon with the suitcase, I click on this, it will bring up my client position window. Now the client position window gives us the amount of equity that we currently have in our account, how much money we're currently using on margin, and the amount of free equity that we have left to trade. When we perform a trade later on in one of the other webinars, you'll start to see that there is another tab being built in here that will show us the current CFD positions that we have live in the system. But because we don't have any at the moment, and we can see that by total margin equaling 0, there is no tab there at present. Alright, so I'll bring that up the top. Now because we're trading CFDs, when we are trading, we will be trading in the local currency. Your base currency, for example, in this account is pounds. But let's say we're trading a stock such as Google that we have a single price window up here for, then we automatically transfer the value of pounds into US dollars to transact that trade. When you close out the position, the profit will be in US dollars, and as such, your cash position will then be reflected as such. So you'll have your pounds, which you had initially, and you'll also have the profit or loss in US dollars. To transfer that back into pounds, you just need to contact your provider and they'll be able to transfer that back into the pounds at the prevailing currency rate. Alright, the last thing I want to bring up on this screen is to show you the blotters, or the list of trades. Now if you go to this icon up the top left hand corner, you've got current orders, pending orders, contingent orders, executed trades, and all orders. Now the first one we like to bring up is our list of our executed trades. So if I click on this, it will come up with a blotter request. And here we have a couple of different options. We can range the date, so for example it's only going to show us the last 2 days worth. Let's say we want to have a look at the last month's worth of executed trades. Click OK, and the system will then populate with all the trades that have been executed over the last month. And you'll notice there it comes up with a list of 15 executed trades, showing us that we've done trades on Barclays, Vodafone, the UK 100 index, coffee, and also the US 30. It will show us the trade price, the currency, the quantity, and when we actually transacted that trade. I also like to bring up any pending orders, such as any limit or stop loss orders that I currently have in the market. Okay, so we have two options here. We could go back up the top and click on pending orders, and that will bring up the blotter as well. Or the other option is to simply right click in this blue section here, click on new blotter, find pending orders within our blotter type, click OK, and it will create another tab for us so that it doesn't take up as much room on our workstation as it would as another window. Hopefully you can start to see that we've created a trading screen within our platform. Once we're happy with that, we can actually save this screen so we can refer back to it later. All we need to do is go up to File, go out to Layout Manager, or to Save Layout. Now Save Layout would just change this blank layout to this particular screen. What we need to do is go out to Layout Manager. We need to click on Save As, then name this layout. So we could see this for Webinar Test. Then simply click Enter, and we now have a new layout within the Market Maker system. And you'll notice up the top here we have Webinar Test in our group of options of the different layouts on screen. So I just simply close this off. So now we have the Webinar Test, we still have our blank layout, and we have these other different layouts available in the system. So to show you a couple of the other options, let's have a look at firstly the foreign exchange. The foreign exchange layout is just showing us a couple of the major currency pairs at the top, then a few of the other majors such as the euro versus US dollar versus yen, pound versus yen, and then the other spot rates down the bottom of the screen. And as you can see, all the prices are updated in real time. If we then go and have a look at the commodities market, simply click on commodities. It will then preload with all the different commodities that are being offered through this system, such as CFD crude oil, energy, fibers and timbers, metals, soft commodities, agricultural and commodities. Let's also have a look at one on the US market. So if we bring up the US market, it's preloaded with all the important information on the US market, such as the Dow, the S&P 500, the Nasdaq and the Rush, so the major indices. We've also got the CFD US sectors, the news for the US 30, and then the major currency pairs that are being offered, such as the pound versus US dollar and euro versus US dollar. And on the right hand side we've got a couple of charts, 3-month daily, on both the US 30 index and the spot euro versus the spot US dollar. Again, all of these layouts can be changed to suit your particular requirements, and there's no limit to how many layouts that you can create within the Market Maker system. Alright, well, I hope you've enjoyed this initial introduction webinar, and for all the other functionality available through Market Maker, please refer to the other webinars which talk about each of these sections in more detail. Okay, so thanks very much for listening.